I sat in the humid silence of the Savannah probate court and watched my brother Benedict explain to a judge why I needed to be locked away. He used words like unstable and danger to herself with the same clinical precision he used in his plastic surgery practice. Behind him, my parents wept into silk handkerchiefs, performing the role of heartbroken aristocrats to perfection. I did not scream. I did not object. I simply touched the small cold recorder hidden in my pocket and remembered the text Benedict sent me hours ago. "We're doing this because we love you." That was the moment I knew. Love wasn't their motivation. It was their alibi. Before I tell you exactly how my brother destroyed himself in the next 10 minutes, drop a comment and let me know where you are listening from. I want to know who is on the side of the truth, to understand why I sat silent in that courtroom, letting them paint me as a mad woman. You have to go back 3 months to the reading of my grandfather's will. That was the day the polite veneer of the Vance family finally cracked, revealing the rot underneath. We were gathered in the library of the main estate, a room that smelled of old leather and generational secrets. My grandfather, a man who had spent his life collecting beauty to balance out the ugliness of his kin, had left a testament that shocked everyone but me. He left the entire Savannah estate, valued at $15 million, and his private art collection solely to me. Tavia, the quiet one, the one who lived in the carriage house and smelled like turpentine. Benedict did not inherit a dime. Neither did my parents. The explosion wasn't immediate. It was a slow, suffocating pressure. You see, Benedict was the golden child. In my parents' eyes, he was the sun around which our entire universe revolved. He was the brilliant plastic surgeon, the charmer, the legacy. I was just the orbit, existing only to reflect his light or absorb his darkness. But grandfather saw the truth. He knew Benedict wasn't a success. He was a black hole. He knew about the gambling debts Benedict tried to pass off as bad investment luck. He knew that if he left the estate to Benedict, it would be liquidated within a week to pay off bookies in Atlantic City. When the lawyer left, the performance began. My mother, Genevieve, dried her eyes instantly. She looked at me not with pride, but with a terrifying intensity. She told me that Benedict was in trouble. She said he owed people money, dangerous people, and that we had to sell the estate immediately to save him. She called it saving the family name. I looked at them sitting there on the velvet sofas, and I finally saw the invisible chain that had bound me. It is a strange and painful thing to realize you were never really a daughter. You were utility. I was the scapegoat, the vessel they poured their shame into, so they could remain pristine. When Benedict failed a test, it was because I distracted him. When he crashed his car, it was because I upset him. I was the designated loser in a game rigged for him to win. They needed me to be weak, so he could appear strong. They needed me to be invisible, so he could shine. But grandfather had handed me the keys to the kingdom, and for the first time in my life, I refused to hand them over. I told them no. I told them I wasn't selling the estate to cover a gambling debt. I told them I was turning the main house into a sanctuary for women recovering from financial and emotional abuse, a place where they could heal through art. The silence that followed that declaration was absolute. I watched my father's face turn a shade of purple I had never seen before. Benedict laughed, a cold, sharp sound. He looked at me with pure hatred and said, "You would put strangers in our ancestral home before you would help your own flesh and blood." I looked him in the eye and said, "Yes, because those strangers deserve a safe harbor. You deserve a consequence." That was the moment the war started. I didn't know it then, but by refusing to play my role, by refusing to be the obedient scapegoat who sets herself on fire to keep the golden child warm, I had become something far worse in their eyes. I had become the enemy, and as I walked out of the library that day, leaving them to their panic and their rage, I knew they wouldn't just let me keep the house. They would come for me. I just didn't realize how dirty they were willing to fight until I found the knife in my studio. 3 days later, I walked into my studio, the converted carriage house that had been my sanctuary since I was 18. The air usually smelled of linseed oil and cedar, a scent that grounded me. But that afternoon, it smelled of something sharp and metallic, like wet iron. I saw the easel first. It was overturned, and then I saw the canvas. It was the portrait of my grandfather I had been restoring for 6 months. It wasn't just damaged, it was executed. The canvas had been slashed repeatedly from top to bottom, the fabric hanging in ribbons like flayed skin. A jar of cadmium red paint had been thrown against it, splattering the floor and the walls, creating a gruesome, violent tableau that looked terrifyingly like a crime scene. I stood there, my keys digging into my palm, unable to breathe. This wasn't just vandalism. This was a message. This was a promise. "Oh, Octavia," a voice said from the shadows. "Look what you've done." Benedict stepped out from the corner of the room. He was wearing his white lab coat, impeccable as always, his face arranged in a mask of tragic concern. But his eyes were dead. "I tried to tell Mom and Dad you were spiraling," he said, shaking his head. "But they didn't want to believe it. Violent outburst, destruction of property. It's a textbook manic episode. Get out," I whispered. "I can't do that," he said softly. "I call for help. For your own good." Sirens cut through the humid air outside. Blue lights flashed against the windows of a studio, illuminating the red paint like blood. Benedict walked to the door and opened it for the officers. "In here," he told them, his voice thick with fake emotion. "Please be gentle. She's not herself. She's off her medication." 2 officers entered, hands on their belts. They looked at the destroyed room. They looked at the red paint splattered on the walls. And then they looked at me, standing there trembling, looking for all the world like a woman who had just snapped. Benedict was a respected surgeon, the pillar of the community. I was the reclusive artist in a carriage house. The narrative wrote itself. "Ma'am," one officer said, stepping toward me, "we need you to come with us." He did this. I wanted to scream. He cut the painting. He's lying. The scream built in my chest, hot and desperate. I wanted to tear at them, to force them to see the truth. But then a cold clarity washed over me. This was the trap. This was the sanity defense. I realized in that split second that if I screamed, I proved him right. If I fought, I was the violent, unstable sister he needed me to be. To a stranger, a woman screaming that her doctor brother is framing her sounds exactly like a paranoid delusion.